Thank you for tuning in to Upon the Rock broadcast. I'm your host, Pastor Lawrence Shakir. I believe the Word of God will build a godly foundation in the lives of people. There is more available information on our website. You can log on to shakirministries.org. Now, let's go into today's message.
All right, everybody. I'm going to sit and present just because I've been under the weather today. And I wanted to kind of push through because I know that there were a lot of people interested in the nonprofit sector of everything. So I want to give an introduction of who I am, what I do, and talk about those interested in starting a nonprofit and 501c3s and all that information. So before I get started, I'm just going to pray for a quick second. Father God, in the name of Jesus, I thank you. Lord, I just ask you to strengthen me through this 45 minutes, Father God, and allow me the knowledge, the wisdom, and the work to go through and present this according to your people. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So again, my name is Kenita Lewis. I'm the founder and president of a nonprofit called Hoping, which I was just explaining to you earlier. And what we do is we help low-income single parents that are in college. We help them with rent and child care while they're in school. We also offer a holistic approach to that. So we offer up to $400 in rent and child care, but we offer counseling. And we offer social skills and life trainings. Because I just believe that as a single parent, they need a holistic approach. It's not just one area where you might see a lot of nonprofits that may offer life skill training, but they don't necessarily offer financial assistance. And when you're a low-income single parent in school, you're not necessarily considered poor as far as the federal poverty level, but you're not making enough to make ends meet. And when you're worried about rent, you don't have the time to worry about, can I budget, when you want to pay your bills. So that's what I do. I started out in business administration with a background in healthcare management. I was doing that, thriving for 6 years over 3 different offices when the Lord was calling me into ministry. And I wanted to find out what my passion was, what I could do every day without being paid for it. And I realized, I give all the time. I've always mentored single parents when I was working. And people in my family and friends, so I figured, what I can do is give. And I thought about this program in my mind, and I didn't know anything about nonprofits, so I tried to figure out what I could do to start a nonprofit, or how would I even go about it. And I ended up putting this program out on paper, and I presented it to one of the doctors that I worked with. And he said, you know what, you have to start this, and I'm going to give you seed money. I couldn't afford a lawyer to do my 501c3 paperwork, so I researched how do I do this and found a young lady that actually agreed to consult me. I ended up doing our paperwork on my own, got everything done, and got our approval in 2 months. And since then, I have helped other nonprofits to do the same. So, Roland.
One more. There you go.
Okay. So, I have helped 8 nonprofits start their nonprofits get their 501c3 and get started, and they all have been approved, 100% success rate in less than 6 months. Wow. Just off of what I've experienced and what I know as a nonprofit leader and how I've gone through. So that's a little bit of my background here. And we're going to talk about 10 steps that you need to know before you start your nonprofit and when you get ready to start your nonprofit, and give you some little tidbits and secrets so that it's not really publicized, but you kind of know this going in, so you'll have that together when you go. I want to put a disclaimer up. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just based off of material contained that I have learned, and this is just for your information. If you want to move forward, I would suggest that you do consult a lawyer before you do move forward. However, I'm not a lawyer. Please don't take this as legal advice. This is just what I've used. It's been successful. But you do want to consult someone in the legal department. First, I want to say, know your steps. A lot of people think, I'm going to start this nonprofit, jump right into the 501c3 process, and go right into grants. And that's not how it works for anybody. Not just, even if you have money, not even if you're popular. It doesn't work that way. You have to have your plan first. You have to ask yourself questions like, do I have a board? Who I'm going to help, when, why, how, what. You have to have all those questions answered before you start this nonprofit. It's just like a business, and quite frankly, to me, it's harder because you don't have a product per se you're selling a mission, and you have to depend on donations and different things like that to stand out. So number one, Business structure. I would say this is probably the easiest structure of starting your nonprofit, the business structure side. And Robert, the first thing you need to know is your name. And you need to look on the Secretary of State to research if anyone has that name. If they don't, then you need to register that name for $25. The Secretary of State charges you to do that online. It'll take a couple of days. They'll give you the information back saying, yes, we do approve that name, and you can go forward and incorporate. I kind of have it backwards in my little bullet points. But after that, once you get the name registered, then you can incorporate your business with that name. After you incorporate your business and your article, you need pretty much articles of incorporation. You can have an LLC for your nonprofit, but I don't recommend it just because the IRS does look more at incorporations because they want you to have more of a structure. But you can do your 501c3 with an LLC. After you incorporate and have the right incorporation provisions, which we'll show in the next slide, you can go ahead and get your EIN. And you want to make sure that you incorporate first before you get your EIN, because your incorporation name has to be what's on your EIN. It can't be, well, I'm going to get my EIN first, and then they don't approve your name. You already have that EIN number. You'll have to reapply. To apply for your EIN, you can go to the irs.gov, and that is free of charge to apply. You also want to make sure you have some bylaws in place. You can use legal counsel for that, or there are some general bylaw templates that are on Google for different states that you can use and tailor towards your own business or nonprofit. And you will need a conflict of interest policy. And that's just stating that as a board and as we work together, we are not going to have a conflict in terms of there might be people on the board that have businesses that would like to work with you, but we're not going to gain profit from anything that we do. We're working together for this cause. So secret number one, the provisions that you need for your incorporation. A lot of people go on and it's easy, it looks easy, so they go online and they decide to incorporate themselves, which is fine. But they forget this little part that says provisions. They leave it blank, they say no provisions there. Well, the IRS does not like that. So it's fine for the Secretary of State when you incorporate, but when you're going to file your 1023, which is the application for 501c3, if these provisions aren't listed, they automatically deny your application. So these are the provisions, and it just says provisions are just basically stipulations, right? And it says that your corporation is only going to be used exclusively for charitable purposes. For religious purposes, educational, or scientific purposes, that you don't plan to use this for profit, okay? And then the next one just says upon dissolution of the corporation, which means if you dissolve it or you decide to stop acting as a nonprofit, that you don't get to keep that for personal gain. Whenever you start a nonprofit, your nonprofit doesn't belong to you. Even though you started, it's not anybody's possession. That nonprofit belongs to the public. That's why it's a public charity. So if you dissolve it, everything that you get within that nonprofit has to go to another nonprofit. Computers, office material, anything, a building, any and everything has to go directly to another nonprofit. Secret number two, your board. You need to have a board in place whenever you incorporate, period. You can have 3 people, at least 3 people that are unrelated to you. However, there's an unspoken rule by the IRS that they don't talk to you about when you file your 1023 application. They want to make sure that less than 30% of your board is related to you. There's an actual question in the application that says, is anyone on your board related to you? You have to tell them who and how. If you have 3 people on your board, and let's say, for example, I'll use myself for an example. My husband is on my board. So when I found out that I needed to have less than 30% related to me, for every one person that's related to you, you need 3 people that are not related to you. So when I started, I needed to have 5 board members, right? Because 3 people had to be unrelated. Hi, so when you are preparing to start your nonprofit, you want to make sure that you have skilled board members that you can trust, because your board can vote you off as a nonprofit leader, even if you founded it, that aren't related to you, that serve the skill set that you want. But technically, if IRS sees that you have 3 members on your board and they're all wife, cousin, they'll deny your application. It's unspoken. So I want to give you that secret. You need to ask the question, will you pay your board or will they be volunteering? I would not suggest that you pay a nonprofit board. Nonprofit is for charitable purposes, and it's just kind of sticky if you have a board that you're paying and they work towards, a common goal, and you may use their services, and it just kind of has that conflict of interest that we talked about earlier. So I would suggest that your nonprofit board is volunteer, and they serve for a term, and that's it. And you just keep exchanging the board in that way. When you choose your board, you need to make sure for the application purposes that you have a physical mailing address for them and that you have their titles together. Normally, you just need at least a CFO, president, and treasurer, president, and secretary. But if you have more, you can just name them as board of directors, or if you have different titles you want to give them, you can. But you want to make sure that you have either a bio on them or a resume, because the IRS is going to ask for a bio, their name, their mailing address, and if they're getting any salaries. What they're looking for is they want to see if they are qualified and have the skill to run an organization. So you want to have that information on top before you even go forward with the application. Secret number 3, bylaws and conflict of interest policy. Like I said before, you must have these. But you don't have to pay a lawyer thousands of dollars to get them. Like I said, you can get them online. Also, the IRS in their 1023 instruction, they have a list of conflict of interest policy right there that you can just take, cut and paste, copy into a Word document, and you can utilize that. And all you need to do is make sure that your first board meeting bolts those in, and it is documented in the minutes that you have adopted that conflict of interest policy, you have adopted these bylaws. Okay? Those are secrets. Am I going too fast?
No, you're good.
Okay. So to the second point, or the second step, define your mission and vision. A lot of times we start with our vision as our mission, and our mission as our vision, and we get it kind of backwards. But your mission is basically just saying to people, this is what we want the organization to exist for. This is what we hope to achieve in the future. And this is how we plan to do it. The vision statement just articulates the dream. What do you want to see overall, as what kind of impact did you want your nonprofit or your business to have? And it's about, you can have 1 to 2 sentences. It doesn't have to be long. I always tell people, don't make your mission statement too long, because people need to be able to remember your mission. And if you have a whole paragraph, they're going to summarize it anyway. So for me, our mission is to empower, encourage, and equip low-income single parents to obtain a college degree, earn essential life skills, and ultimately become self-sufficient. Very clean, very cut. Nice. Our vision is to empower them to ultimately be a better representative in the community. Very clean, very cut. Number 3, your business model. Now, as Don said earlier, or as Pastor Shakir, I think, said earlier, your business model doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to have something in place, because you need to know who you're trying to reach, because a lot of people's like, well, I want to start a nonprofit. I want to help homeless people in Atlanta. That's too broad. There's a lot of homeless people in Atlanta. There are a lot of organizations that help homeless people in Atlanta. How are you going to differentiate yourself, and how are you going to stand out? What is your target audience? Who do you want to reach? You need to be able to explain that not only for business purposes and for grant purposes, but you need to be able to explain that to the IRS, because on their 1023 application, they have a whole narrative that they want you to write. And that narrative is the real key point of your application, because they want that narrative to say, answer every question that an IRS agent would have. So just think of somebody that doesn't know you, has never sat down with you. They want to know, okay, how is she going to do it? Who is she going to reach? Where do they want to be at? What community? How far do they want their service area to be? You have to answer all those questions when you prepare this 1023 application. So your target audience, partnerships. They want to look to see, are you going to collaborate? Because you don't have to be the end all of all the resources. You can collaborate with other organizations that have resources that can be utilized in your mission. For us, for example, we help with the financial. We do not offer the apartment complex. We don't offer the child care. So we will partner with child care facilities or apartment complexes to, offer discounts to our participants, or we will partner with our counselors. We have a counseling firm that partners with our corporation so that our single parents can get free counseling. We don't have to provide that. We don't have to pay a counselor. We can just outsource and get that relationship going. Your partnerships are necessary. Funding sources. Grants aren't always going to be available to you immediately, and they're not always going to be available to you all the time. You don't need to depend on grants. You have to differentiate your funding source. So how are you planning on building funding? What if you can't get a grant at all? How else are you going to fund your project? How are you going to gain donors? What are you going to do to have income outside of donors? What kind of fundraising events are you going to do? Do you have earned income streams? All of these things are things that you have to think about before you apply, because this is what they're going to ask you for on the application. They ask you for a 3-year projected budget. They ask you for what your marketing plan and your fundraising plan is. You have to know this information. Earned income fundraising, I stress that because that's something that we have to do. We've been in business for 6 years, but we've been accepting participants in 3. And we have helped 23 single parents have seen 16 graduate in just 3 years. We've had to differentiate and find earned income streams because they're not, what they don't tell you is that foundations have an unspoken probation period. They're not going to give you a grant for your first 3 years normally because they want to see, can you sustain yourself? So if they see you as a fresh startup, they're limited on resources themselves. They're not going to give you a $50,000 grant, and a lot of people start there at $50,000 and $100,000, but you need to start at $2,500 and things like that so that you can establish your success track record first before they'll even get in bed with you. So at that point, your track record has to be established before you really start applying for grants, because what are you going to put in your grant proposal? Oh, I'm starting up, but I haven't done anything yet. We haven't gotten any grants. That's not the drive they want to see. So step number 4, which is very important, is design your program model. What services will you provide? It's not enough just to say we'll help homeless people. How will you help them? How do you plan to help them? Who's going to deliver the services? Do you plan to have volunteers? How will you measure your program's impact? A lot of nonprofits get denied grants because they don't properly develop their program model. You will have to put some of that in your narrative for the 1023 application for 501c3. So you need to know how you plan to measure. And think of nonprofit data measuring as more than subjective. It's not, I'm going to help people feel good, I'm going to give, hope to homeless people. You have to be able to say, I want to see 90% of the homeless persons that I've helped in transitional housing by 2016. You have to be very objective. There are some subjective goals that you can place, but your objective data is what's going to show your impact. And you have to figure out how you want to capture that. Starting out, you can possibly capture that via surveys. You can capture that via Excel spreadsheets, just taking account of who you've helped and what you've seen them do. But for the most part, you need to be able to capture that somehow and be able to convey that when you're talking to the foundations or when this application is being processed. Number 5, apply for your 501c3 status after you've done all of that first. And it doesn't take that long if you're driven and you're really serious about going forward. It just takes enough time for you to sit down and actually think it through. Now you can apply for your 501c3 status, but I will caution you because it is costly to file. And we'll get into that in a minute. It won't guarantee grants. It makes you eligible for grants, but it doesn't guarantee that you'll get a grant. What you do and how you position yourself and how you attract your clients, but also how you measure your data and how you collect that data is what's going to attract you for grants, not just the 501c3. You must have a thorough thought out program because all of that is needed for your application. And there are 2 ways that you can file now. Before it was just this one 1023 application, 27 pages long, all these schedules. Now they have a 1023 EZ. So we're going to talk about what the differences are in a few seconds, right when I push the clicker here. Okay, so 1023 EZ is just like it says. It's easy. It's so easy. It's only 3 pages long. You can file it online. It has one set filing fee of $400, so it's not cheap. Okay, and you don't have to have all the required documents that I talked about before. You need to have them in place, but you don't have to submit them with your application. So your articles of incorporation, yes, it still needs to have the provisions, but they're going to look online directly to see if you have it. Your conflict of interest policy, they're going to ask you to verify that you have it and vouch by that with your signature. You don't have to turn it in. Your bylaws, they're going to ask you if you have it, vouch for it by checking it off and with your signature, but you don't have to submit the bylaws with everyone's board member's signatures on there. Your 3-year projected budget financial plan, you don't have to submit that. They don't have to look through those numbers. You just have to, let them know that you have one in place. All of these things, the bios, the resumes, all you need to provide on this about the board members is their name, their title, and their mailing address. Simple. All you're doing is checking off things. And most of it, if you're starting up, doesn't apply to you, so you can successfully check no. You are supposed to be able to get this back faster, a lot faster than the regular 1023 form. Some of them say 45 days. So that's a lot easier, a lot better. But not everybody qualifies. So I'm just going to read you off a brief list of common things that common businesses that may not qualify. If your business is projected to make over $50,000 over a 3-year period, you don't qualify. If you have made over $50,000 in a 3-year period, you don't qualify. If you're a church, a school, or a hospital, you don't qualify. If you're a successor of an organization, meaning you're working under another umbrella, you won't qualify for the 1023-EZ. If you're LLC, sorry, you can't do the 1023-EZ. Like I told you, it's hard for LLCs to get that nonprofit status. If you were previously revoked of 501c3 status, you aren't able to apply for the 1023-EZ. So there's an eligibility worksheet that you have to look at, in which they tell you to go through before you apply for the 1023-EZ. But if you meet, the eligibility requirements, you can go online and fill that out and file and get a fast response, pay $400, get your determination back and move forward just as if you were doing a regular form. The 1023 form, like I said before, is not so easy. It's 27 pages. The fee is $400 if you make over $10,000 or project to make over $10,000 annually annually for your nonprofit is $400. If you make over or project to make over $10,000 annually, then it's $850. So it's expensive and it's non-refundable. So you want to make sure that you get everything right. This is a mail-in document. You can't file it online. So you have to check through their checklist, fill out everything, print it out, and provide all the necessary documents that I told you. And some of them have schedules, like if you're a church, you have to fill out a whole other schedule, which is another worksheet explaining the creed, your documents, and how many members you have, and all these things to make sure that you're an established church. Hospital, same thing. School, same thing. It takes sometimes 3 months to a year to get that back. It really just depends on how backed up the IRS is and how thorough you are in your application and your narrative, which is why I stress that the narrative is so important. But all of my clients have heard back in less than 6 months. Number 6, what's your strategy? Put it in writing. After you filed the 1023, now it's time for you to get with your board, and you can do a 1-page strategy plan, 1-year strategy plan. A lot of people, because you're growing so much in the first 3 or 4 years, 6 years, you are creating that strategy plan every year. But put it in writing. Some people call it business plans, some don't. But basically, you're saying, how are we going to carry out the strategy? What are your top 3 strategies that you need to discuss as a nonprofit? And mostly, the main thing that you're talking about here is how do you want to bring awareness to your community? How are you going to have donor retention and gain donors? And how are you going to provide the services that you want to provide? And those are mostly the 3 that you start with when you're starting a nonprofit. Number 7, you want to execute that plan now. It doesn't matter if you don't have your 501c3 yet. You tell people that you apply for it, and upon approval, their donation will be tax deductible. But you can still go through and start making some progress. You can start reaching out to some partners, getting your resources together, and implementing your plan, because when you do, that's what your foundations are going to want to know. That's what other people that you're trying to reach for funding are going to want to know. What have you done in the meantime? And you'll be able to show them that by executing your plan. Number 8, collect your data and evaluate. Like I said, how effective has your organization been in the community? What are your success rates? Have you been monitoring them? How are you keeping up with those? Who have you impacted? like I said, spreadsheet surveys. I survey our participants every semester for us because we do 10-month school yearly for us. So I just survey them every year. I survey our donors too, how we communicate with you well about the impact of your dollars. I ask our participants, is there anything else that we can add to the program that will help benefit you and impact you more to be more successful? However you collect them, there's monkey surveys that's free that allows you to do up to 10 questions. You can send that out. But there are many ways that you can collect this data and just keep track of it. It's like gold for you in terms of money. Number 9, plan for growth. So at this point, you have your strategy, you have your business plan together, you have your board together, you have your funding plan together, you have filed for your 501c3, and hopefully you've got it back now, but if not, you're still planning to grow. Because the bottom line is you want to be able to scale. Like in regular business, you want to be able to scale, but your scale is the more people you can serve, the more people you can impact. Not so much as how much product you can sell, but how can you make your nonprofit known in your community? And start within the city around you first, then start within your county, then move and branch out in that way. And you need to plan for that growth about how you're going to do and be competitive, because for me, every nonprofit, Atlanta is very concentrated with nonprofits. Every nonprofit does golf tournaments. Every nonprofit may do a 5K. Every nonprofit may do direct mail. How are you going to be different? You know, what fundraising event can you do differently? How can you reach people differently? What differentiates our nonprofit is that we're the only nonprofit in the U.S., actually, from our research, that reaches the lower-income single parent in college. There are a lot of nonprofits that reach single parents that are homeless, but not in college. You know, that differentiates us, period. So our mission is differentiated. So now we can go out and do things and still be different. So how are you going to differentiate yourselves from other people? That's the main thing you want to answer. And then the final step is contact me if you need help. I have webinars that I've done where I do one-on-one, where we literally go through the 1023 application one by one. And I'll take you through it. And we walk through what your answers are going to be based on what you told me about your nonprofit. I go and give you the templates that I have for conflict of interest, your bylaws, your narratives. All of those things we go over together. We do your 3-year projected fundraising plan. We look at your funding plan. We look at all those marketing plans. Everything that's required, you and I are working through it together. And by the time you get off the phone, your application is done in terms of checking off everything. You may still have to add in some things in your narrative or write up your narrative, but you have the game plan and everything that you need to do it. So I offer those webinars. I also do consulting. So maybe you want to do it yourself and you just want to be able to ask me some questions back and forth. I do that as well because that's what someone did for me, and it's helped me and helped other people. And sometimes I'm able to help people file it. You know, I can go through and just do the data entry for you. You can go in, make sure that everything out of place is what you've said to me and how you want that to go forward, and then you just file it whenever you're ready to file it. In the state of Georgia, they usually only like lawyers to file, but if you're offering like grants or something or some kind of consulting service, and with it, then you can help a client file the 501c3. So that is what I do on the side in addition to my nonprofit. It just kind of came to me. It was not something I wanted to do, but people were coming to me because I was successful in it. So I've helped 8, like I said, successfully 100%, and I'm helping 3 right now. To get their 501c3 status and move forward. So like I said, if you have any questions, what I offer Pastor Shakir for the purpose of this seminar is if there's anyone that wants a consultation, I'm giving free consultations. You can have my number and call me. We can work through whatever you need in terms of how you want to start your nonprofit and where you would like to go further, and we can definitely work together because you participated in this event. So I wanted to leave a few minutes for any questions, because a lot of times this may bring up questions, and it is kind of quickly for me to go through, but I wanted to leave a few minutes for any questions that anybody may have concerning starting a nonprofit. Okay, go ahead.
You have nonprofits now that have a profitable arm, or a profitable arm that has profitable business that has a nonprofit arm. Can you explain a little bit more about that, the social enterprise concept?
What I think, generally what I've seen what works best is if, like you said, that for-profit incorporates another nonprofit that they work with in partnership as a business. That for-profit would then use a certain percentage of their profits and pass that on to the nonprofit. But the nonprofit would have its own everything. So the nonprofit has its own board that is outside of the for-profit because that conflict of interest issue, right? They'll have their own volunteers, and they work that business as if they're under a parent company as a strict nonprofit. So they still do the articles of incorporation, still have their bylaws, still have their own governance, if so to speak. And that for-profit can help by presenting some of their profits a percentage of the profits to the nonprofit to help it thrive. But the nonprofit acts on its own in terms of still going out and getting grants for its program and as its sole entity.
Would you happen to, and that's more so how I want to design where I'm headed, but would you happen to know the rates on acceptance, since that's something that's like fairly new to the common person? Businesses are doing it all the time now, but
I wouldn't say it's new.
I mean, it's not new, but a lot of people are like, what?
Yeah, they think outside, they haven't thought outside the box about how to do it that way, but really it's a really smart concept because it brings in that earned income stream that I talked about, because you automatically have a certain percentage coming as long as that business is thriving to the organization. So I definitely would encourage people to consider that just for business purposes and to help them, prolong or move forward the mission. Yeah.
I have a question, I guess, regarding church 501c3 is, you said something about churches don't qualify for
10.3 easy.
Oh, okay. It's only because what we do as far as the community, or why?
I think because the application is so condensed and so slim that they really just want an easy process. With the church, they have to look at a schedule, and they have to really determine if you're really a church, because there are certain defining characteristics of a church. So if you're a church but you have like 2 or 3 members and everybody's related to you, they kind of steer away from giving you the 501c3 status. So it's really their check and balance, and because they can't really get that deep into the 10.3 easy application for that, they have you just fill out the 27 page so they can really get into the definitions of what they consider a church.
And one more as it relates to that. My 501c3 came when I put the church together under Tennessee. And now I'm out here obviously in Georgia, and it's still under that umbrella as a foreign company. Can I keep it that way?
Yeah. You
I don't want to go through that process again.
Yeah, I always tell people the incorporation is where you want to look at if you want to still stay incorporated in Tennessee or whatever, because you can be incorporated anywhere. But the IRS 501c3 is federal, and that's everywhere. I mean, so even if you move, your 501c3 is still valid wherever you are. It's just a matter of how you want to present it, but all of it is public knowledge, so people can go on and still look at your 501c3 application, and they can note that you've had changes when they look you up in the Secretary of State that you moved, but it wouldn't alter your 501c3 status application.
Is that a one-time fee or annual renewal? Okay,
one-time fee. Okay. Unless you don't get, unless for some reason it's revoked, and usually I forgot to bring this up, so thank you for asking that. People's 501c3 status can be revoked if they don't file their taxes. A lot of times before, if you didn't make over a certain amount of money, the IRS didn't require you to do a tax form. But now you have to make, even if you make under $50,000 annually, you have to file what's called a 990N, which is an electronic postcard. It's really simple. You go to the IRS site online, and they just ask you your name, your address, have you made over $50,000? You check no, you sign it. It's electronically filed, and you're good. If you're over $50,000, then you need to file a 990, either easy or just a regular 990 form, so that they can evaluate how you're, spending your money and your expenses and things like that. Any other questions?
Do you have to have an incorporation in order for it to become a nonprofit, or can an LLC become a nonprofit?
You don't have to have, but I will tell you it's hard for LLCs. They don't, IRS doesn't recommend it because they want you to have structure. And with LLC, you don't have to have 3 board members, and things like that. But I always tell people to go ahead and incorporate just because it's the same filing fee. It's all $100, and if it's going to make your chances better, then I would. And you kind of want to have that structure for your nonprofit. You need to have a board. You need to have the structure and the protection of an incorporation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, I think I did a good job, hopefully, in explaining. I'm so sorry to be under the weather today, but I wanted to kind of push through and make sure that I did move forward again. So, like I said, I'll give my information to anyone interested, and you can definitely call me and we can talk to any of your nonprofit questions or any of the questions that you have. All right.
Thank you for listening to Upon the Rock broadcast. If this message has been a blessing, you can help us spread the gospel by sharing this message with your friends. Also, if you're online, please be sure to contact me, either through our website at shakirministries.org or through social media. I would love to hear from you. Together, we can build a godly foundation in the lives of people. Until next time, please know that I'm praying for you, and I hope to see you on our next broadcast.